jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
Welcome back, ladies and gents. We got Tara Jabbari from the Cultural Historical Podcast. Who Was She? And the TV discussion panel discussing divas. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Always trying to get everything organized, but I think I'm doing good. And we got the Action Elites, John Mark. And no, he's not an elitist. He's just a reviewer.
Always good to be here.
Alrighty, perfect. So, following the tradition of actor-turned-filmmakers, we decided to pretty much rank most of Angelina Jolie's acting, producing, and directed efforts. So, let's see how it ranks. What was your intro to her, Miss Jabbari?
Mine was probably, I think it was around the time of Girl Interrupted.
Gotcha.
And just like she was getting a lot of press, there was that campaigning for Oscar season, and I was a little too young for her work, especially earlier work, and this one, she didn't do Kung Fu Panda until she had the kid, right? Maddox.
I think so.
I think one thing that drew me to her, many people think she's a very beautiful person. I agree. She has very striking features, right? She has very sharp cheekbones, full lips, eyes, mesmerizing. I mean, she's Maleficent for a reason, right?
Yeah.
I was always like, the camera loves her. So I was always drawn to her, and she was always kooky and crazy. I was just thinking about this, that before, only in the last couple of years have like non-binary or, you know, pansexual or whatever, all these new terms explain a person's sexuality. And Angelina Jolie probably would fit the bill, because people are like, she dated a woman, now she's married a man, and then she, you know, is kooky, and she's, you know, kissing her brother, which I don't think they're incestuous. But
They're not, but that was just some press release. People
are close. And
well, that's just it. Yeah, she wasn't close to her dad, who she's since made amends with. But yeah, it is like you say, everyone was just like getting on the gossip train. Who's she dating? Oh,
and then,
and not mentioning whether or not they actually like her as an actress, and it was just very frustrating. It's like, just you do or don't. But she's gonna be here a while, because she is kind of one of the various people that kind of remind you of just earlier big screen heartthrobs from even just the 40s to the 60s, who were, you know, she's both, it's definitely easy to say, she's both a very giant creative talent, she's an activist, and yeah, she's totally a sex symbol.
and that was one thing, is I was becoming a teenager when she really got involved with the UN and stuff, and so she was the only one that I really could see, because I loved film, so I absorbed everything film. And she was the only one that would say, you know, they're like, who are you wearing? Who are you fucking? And all that stuff. And she's like, I'm fucking two men. I'm wearing Versace. And do you know what's going on in Sierra Leone? And I'm like, no, what's going on in Sierra Leone? And I just thought that was admirable, and I fell in love with her basically, and she is everything to me. I've already decided I'm naming my daughter after her.
Oh, even better.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. And my goal in life, one of them, I mean, I do have somewhat of a life, but I would love to be able to get an authorized biography on Angelina, meaning with her blessing. But
I'm
they,
sure she. Well, that's just it. I think she is good at just reading into people's honesty because she's been betrayed so many different times by different producers, let alone by love interests. So I'm sure.
Harvey Weinstein, no one listened to her, and then they're like, "Oh shit, remember when she pointed that out?" And she has said, she goes, "I think if my real fans really do know me and know my intentions, so she's not worried about bad press." And I kind of
She's come a long way at recreating herself literally every decade. First she's the B-movie actress, then she's the blockbuster queen, then she's the art house queen. Now she's kind of the filmmaking queen and still pretty selective about what she does. And so it's like, that's a big deal, And
she also is good at calling people out without being, and you'll see it in her interviews, but as she gets older and more experienced in all her professions. I remember for her first film that she directed, what was it called? Honey and
In the Land of Blood and Honey, yeah.
Blood and Honey. So like the reporter clearly did not see the film, and they were like, "What would you do if you had to choose like this love story in the middle of a war zone?" And she's like, "Well, watch the film and you'd know what I would do." That's what
I know.
And I'm like, "Oh, lazy ass." They try
to quote the Young Turks, a lot of the mainstream media really is a joke nowadays. I mean, and it frustrates me to no end. Is like, at least Jimmy Kimmel will at least say, "I've only been allowed to see the first 40 minutes of the screener of your movie."
Exactly.
And Conan would even joke, "I've always been a fan." He won't say that he's seen the movie. But yeah, I see all the other talk show hosts and even other personas, and they'll be like, "Yeah," and every time the celebrity or writer who's on will always say, "You clearly haven't seen it, so what the fuck am I up here for?"
Exactly.
Yeah. And I feel like she has that graciousness to her, but I could go on how much I love her.
Well, my grandparent, late grandmother and mother were actually in the same wheelhouse. They would see her, on some of the Today Show or whatever, and it's like, but they weren't talking fashion or anything. They're just seeing an honest 60 minutes type retrospect, and it wasn't, like you say, about how far she was coming. It was just more, it was like, yeah, out of all the celebrity turned, people who are doing, helping out refugees, I definitely believe her. I don't necessarily believe anyone else who was doing stuff like this around the same time, like Madonna, because it's like they just got money to spend. Not necessarily, doesn't necessarily mean that their heart is in the right place. Just, hey, yeah, sure, why not? Who cares?
And
I'm like,
I've met people who work in, not necessarily in UN, but in organizations, nonprofits. Oh, I gotta delete that. Hold on. I'm gonna quit out of
well,
that.
no, that's a good point, because it's like you would see them do it just talking at a panel. Everyone's like, they're doing great stuff. I'm like, all they're doing is talking. They're not actually financing or getting out there and actually helping, helping.
Literally is in those huts and those war zones and on those. I don't know if she's in war zones, but she's in the refugee camps. She does give a third of her income to charity. She really does it.
John can probably confirm this. Didn't she kind of start doing that around 03 because she went to just so many exotic locations on the Tomb Raider movies, and that's.
I know why. Sorry.
I believe that's the case.
Yeah, because I swear that was around the time where I was seeing, all these movies that she's in, interviews with her, candidate stuff, and it wasn't anything salty. It was just more, she's unpredictable. You never know what kind of performance she's going to give, and I think that's pretty much it. This is what has helped us with these last two people we talked about, let alone a lot of the other people we covered on the show. We pretty much is like, unpredictability is definitely the best strategy. We don't know what kind of a performance or character or kind of movie they're going to pick. And I mean, I think she's even avoided a lot of awful movies that she was attached to at one point. Like, they were supposed to, long story short, she was attached to Universal's attempt at basically cashing in on the Marvel and DC craze by rebooting their classic horror monsters. And she was like supposed to be like, I think, Creature of the Black Lagoon or some shit. And I was like, I'm just glad that project died.
Yeah.
She's better than that. She doesn't have to
It
be
was
in
Brad
these stupid.
actually, if I remember correctly.
My bad, yeah. I think that was ScarJo, but yeah, it's like she's supposed to play one of those classic monsters. I'm like, nah, she doesn't need to. She's better than all these special effects, makeup extravaganza. She can actually do just an important, brutally gripping movie or some shit. But yeah.
Do you guys read her notes from my travels?
No.
No.
I think I've heard of that book, but I have not read it. No.
Read twice.
Did you get the chance?
Yeah, so that one explains her backstory of how she got involved with the UN in general, and it ends with almost a little after she adopted her son, her first
Sweet.
son. So you kind of see, you know, she started it because she was in Tomb Raider and worked on Beyond Borders, and then just went full force. And so that gives you a good background on, and she talks about how she never really had a good education and she never went to college really, that she was like these travels and working with the UN, volunteering at the time for the UN was her education, and it meant more to her than film, but she basically works in film now because it offers her an income that allows her to be charitable and also the exposure to bring awareness to issues that she thinks are often ignored.
It's definitely more rewarding. That is definitely for sure. Because, I mean, like you say, we kind of get sucked into, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that. And, you know, you wonder why so many people drop out is like because they either had a really crappy advisor, they didn't sit down and actually ask themselves, let alone their friends and family, what do I want to actually do with my life? And it's like, well, yeah, a degree doesn't really mean anything if your heart wasn't really in it, you didn't really want to earn it, you know, because that's just it. There's so many people who went to Harvard, but they're dipshits. They just had resources and, you know, had
It kind of, it's very hard to
it's like
live up to your potential, and she figured it out kind of.
You can have the best resources in the world, but if you do not implement them or actually use them, it doesn't really mean anything. Probably not. And so, John, how did you become fascinated by this persona?
Well, for me, it was actually, speaking of Tomb Raider, that's actually what introduced me to her at the time.
I mean, it was kind of a big deal because it was just like one of the few video game movies everyone talked about. And, you know, it was a love letter to Indiana Jones, both the game and the movie. So that's kind of why it was a big deal.
The director actually fought for her to be in there.
Oh, so there you go.
Video.
I think that's just it, too. I mean, because I do remember every one of her co-stars have almost always said just wonderful things about her. She's always on time. She knows her lines. She makes sure everyone else is comfortable playing whatever scene, any kind of tone. It's like, that's not like anything else that you're going to hear about some of these other people who we know and love, but hear them talking some serious shit. So it's just like, damn.
Very true.
I remember Johnny Depp said, oh, she's so mistaken. You know, the media doesn't even know the real her. You know, she's awesome. And I think as we get for some of these other movies, I'll throw out a few more names. So I'll go back a bit. Her first credited movie is 82 before she actually like joins, I think, the acting guild. But it's just a drama she did with her father, John Voight. And I've never seen the movie, but I do recall like seeing a YouTube clip of that. And I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good kid performance. I will confess, Cyborg 2 was on Sci-Fi Channel almost all the time.
So you've seen?
Oh, God.
I have. It's a pretty lowbrow B movie, but it's not an unbearable one. And I do have to say, she's pretty much a Terminator type badass in it, without actually being robotic. She's actually has more life in it than all the other people who seem too restricted.
Every biography and interviewer who's seen that film said like the only real good part is Angelina. Like you really recognize that she has a talent, but I have not seen it. I will admit that.
It's fine. You don't need to.
Yeah, you don't need to at all.
So John, tell us your memories growing up watching Hackers.
Oh man, that's an interesting one. Because that's when I wasn't initially interested in at first. This goes back a few years ago. Because usually those type of films can be a very mixed bag, but that's one that I think is one of the very few from the '90s that holds up with its
Mhm.
story and characters. And she, in particular, showcased how she would become a bigger star time.
Right?
And
Totally.
it's
I think
just one I always get to watch every time.
that's where she met her first husband, Johnny Lee Miller. But it was interesting because I think you could definitely say she kind of complements I mean, being a character named Acid Burn, that's just awesome for starters. And then part two, since she was kind of basically a real life rebel, I think that's why she was basically the female James Dean growing up and just in a lot of her movies. So it's like that's just why I bought into a lot of what she was doing. Where it's like, yeah, of course. She's lived that kind of, on the run kind of lifestyle, and I mean, co-starring with Matthew Lillard and all these other people. Yeah, I buy it.
Yeah. Did you guys listen to the How Did This Get Made episode of Hackers?
I think
I
I
did not.
did briefly. Friends of our show, They Must Be Destroyed on Sight, even covered it and talked about how, 95 was a huge year for cyberpunk type of hacking movies like The Net, Virtuosity, Johnny Mnemonic, and Strange Days. So some of those really atrocious, some of them really awesome, some of them just really good, depending on which version of the movie you saw. So, but yeah, I'll let you weigh in on it.
Yeah, it's okay. I love her and Johnny Lee Miller. I hope they get back together to this day. I like that they're friends.
Yeah, it seems like she's like the only one of her ex-flames or ex-husbands who she's on good terms with. So that says a lot.
She's still in good terms with Billy Bob. She wrote a foreword for his autobiography.
All right. After years of saying we love, hate each other.
Yeah.
There you go. So the next one up, Without Evidence. I think this was a TV movie. It's a true crime story. Nothing really remarkable. You can find it easy on YouTube. It's got an interesting cast, including Anna Gunn, the Practice and Breaking Bad fame. I wasn't. I didn't hate this one. It was just so like it or hate it kind of movie. But Angelina's really only seen like through flashbacks and on the interrogation video footage. It's like, holy shit! I'll be damned if I didn't feel like that was legit. Like there's some legit feel to that criminal she's portraying. So it's just like she didn't have to act petty to show how petty the whole situation was. She just was showing, you don't understand me, and it's like perfect. That's deception is the best way of acting and complementing the rest of the tone. So yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen it.
Oh, good. Next one up, Love Is All There Is. Now, this is a Bronx version of Romeo and Juliet, and definitely impressive. This whole cast is really cool. Paul Sorvino, Connie Stevens, Abe Vigoda, Barbara Carrera even. But yeah, I thought this was a very laid-back, easygoing movie, and it's been remastered a few times, I think, by MGM DVDs, so I'll also leave it at that. I thought this was a very laid-back, easygoing movie. Next one up, Mojave Moon. I saw this years ago, and I was just kind of like, this is a very weird road movie that kind of feels like Tarantino leftovers. I mainly saw it because I was going through a lot of Michael Bihn's resume. I still don't know what the hell this movie's about. It's just kind of a very weird East LA kind of gangster movie, and I can't recommend it.
Yeah, I didn't see this. I remember when I was obsessed with her, I saw Love Is All There Is. It's cute.
Yeah, because I mean, it's just a feel-good movie, but it's...
I couldn't get my hands on, and now I'm glad I didn't, according to your...
Yeah, I mean, it's a very confusing storyline. It's like, what am I supposed to feel? And it just kind of gets so carried away. The actors are all being very hammy, and she really isn't given much to do except, yell, no, no, don't do that, don't fight. And I'm just like, okay. I just hate awkward movies like this.
Yeah.
Probably good that I skipped that one.
Yeah. Next one up, probably the most rebel you've ever seen her before Girl Interrupted. It's probably Foxfire.
Right.
And once again, it's based on the book of the same name, which is about a girl gang. And I never thought of it as a coming of age movie, but it's totally what that is.
And the woman that she fell in love with, supposedly.
I think so. That's right. I didn't love or hate this movie. This was just a very well acted drama. This is before she also goes out and works on a bit of TV work as well. Did you see this, John, or did you just kind of hear about it?
No, I never heard that one.
All right, okay.
Honestly.
Okay, Tara, any remaining thoughts on it? Just kind of straightforward.
I kind of thought like it was like The Craft around, again, same time frame, but without witches. It's just like misunderstood teens. Again, just no super.
That's a good point. Yeah, it is kind of like The Craft.
Right? So, yeah.
Let's call it The Lost Girls.
Yeah.
The Lost Boys. Oh, God. So then next one up. Before a few days ago, I was able to catch up on some of her TV work I had not seen, and this is one. It's almost always shown on TV. This was a CBS 2-part movie called True Women, and it's just again, just late 1800s movie, just covering 5 decades of just, from the Civil War, or the Texas Revolution to the Civil War, and even the women's suffrage movement. It does a lot and really keeps it going. There's a young Rachel Lee Cook. I think she played... Which person did she play? That's right. She was playing a young Angelina Jolie, so there you go.
That's right.
Dana Delaney and, from China Beach and Body of Proof fame. And then you got Annabeth Gish from West Wing and X-Files. They really all just really dive into this. Just all these friends separated by just, violent circumstances, I totally got an idea of my great-grandmother, her tales of just recalling just her house is being raided by, violent Native Americans. And it just kind of just gives you an idea of just kind of the cowboy mentality, all the other greedy land developers, and some other kind of politics without just feeling just forced and unnatural. It was produced by Hallmark, but it's hardly what you would call, what you think of Hallmark today, where it's like, oh, cutesy, cutesy. It's like, no, it's a pretty epic movie.
I had never.
It's not as generic as some of those.
No, not at all restricted to where at times I forgot. It's like, oh man, this is a TV movie. This is a very expensive looking production, and Tony Todd and Sally Richardson Whitfield, the Candyman and Eureka Gal, they're both playing some of the slaves. They bring a lot of persona to their roles as well, because they're more than just friends at that point, and you buy into it because of all the development of it. It's just a very delightful historical fiction. Someone actually took the time to make something ambitious as opposed to be very ego-headed and in some ways even just wrongfully depict the era to where you're like, yeah, no, that didn't even remotely happen, It's not like Braveheart where you're like, who was the real William Wallace really like? And next up, George Wallace.
Her first Golden Globe win.
Her first Golden Globe win. I will say she's very cute in this one. Has great chemistry with lead star Gary Sinise, who was just fresh off of doing the movie True Man, about the president. And this one, I gotta say, DVD Talk does a solid take on how it's very well put together by John Frankenheimer, yet the script kind of suffers because it doesn't really take any stance. And just, a lot of historical license, let alone dramatic depiction. I don't think that's even really the problem. Because even before you get into any of that, I get that you're going to combine a bunch of different plot points and maybe not exactly depict it the exact way. I think the main issue is anyone who realizes basically Wallace is pretty much not any different than some of our other alt-right judges. And so I think the other issue is they could have just gone way deeper, kind of like Oliver Stone's Nixon, and just showed how he's kind of a suck-up. You know? Whatever he can do, if he's got to say something bigoted just to get his way, that would have been way more interesting, if not compelling. And here, I just did not care.
Oh yeah,
Really,
and not a good sign for a biopic.
it really isn't. And it's already bad enough that you're realizing, yeah, so Wallace was basically a piece of shit. If you read about him. Really, the only thing interesting in this one is just the cast. There's a big-ass cast in this. There's a bunch of actors from Law & Order and Oz and The Practice in here, but even Mark Valley from Human Target plays Robert F. Kennedy, but that's it. I don't have anything to really recommend this movie. I guess Mara Winningham and Mark Rolston from Aliens were good, but I don't remember what roles they were in. And they had a lot of screen time, but I don't even remember who they were playing, so skip. Not worth the 3 hours. You're not going to get any history or dramatic reward from watching this. If anything, watch the trailer and just be like, oh, so Gary Sinise was a well-deserved award. Okay, cool.
That's exactly what I did.
You were wise. Okay. Has anyone seen Playing God? It's kind of another under-the-radar kind of movie.
I liked it. I remember liking
I
it.
heard that one.
Yeah, I mean, and for the longest time, I think everyone kind of forgets that she's in that because the poster is so different from the DVD cover, which just shows, maniacal Timothy Hutton.
Yeah.
And I think I would always see parts of it on one of the movie channels. It's too violent to show on regular TV or cable, but it really is atypical. It does remind you of other movies that are around this time. Like, it's a year before Enemy of the State, but it definitely reminds me of other movies like Sneakers and Eraser. But it's definitely a cyberpunk kind of movie, but much like Hackers. I think what I like about this one is the plot twists really deliver, and anyone who says, oh, I don't like Duchovny as a movie star outside of X-Files, I'm like, no, watch him in this. I think you'll...
Yeah, and I know he was the big selling point around
Yeah, even one of his X-Files guest stars, Michael Massey, who you guys might know from The Crow, Rosalie Isles, and 24, is for once not playing a psycho and just playing one of the FBI guys who's questionable and a suspect at first. It's a fun time. Everyone seems to be having a lot of fun. Apparently, they cut out a bunch of stuff. Like, Duchovny and Jolie were supposed to be way more romantic, and they cut that out. I'm glad they did, because the sexual tension was already there. You didn't need it,
Yeah.
It's kind of supposed to be a fun noir movie, and I'm glad that people like Roger Ebert actually dug this one. And I think it was because it was a crapshoot and just constantly delayed, and Duchovny's schedule was terrible, just back and forth between this and TV, that I think it was just one of those, everyone had their negative feelings towards the production as opposed to the actual product, which is hardly what I would call, a lackluster affair.
Right.
But that's just it. No one thinks about that. They just think, oh, terrible production, so therefore it must be a bad movie. It's like, no, it's only a terrible production if, you get mismarketed or pushed back continually, then people start saying, maybe it's not all that good. Maybe, but half the time it is often just the investors, bitch slapping the producers and the studio not knowing what to do with something because people suck.
The finished product it's a good entertaining film.
Yeah, for such an over-the-top movie, it's also pretty lightweight. It doesn't overdo anything in any content-wise or story-wise. It's a fun kind of criminal underworld kind of caper. I think it'll even entertain Tarantino kind of fans.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right, so next up, Hell's Kitchen. This can also be found on YouTube, and this was another one. I always would see clips of it. I'm like, wow, Angelina Jolie's playing a pretty foul-mouthed character, but I didn't mind it. But it can be it's going to vary by crowd. Some people will find it a rough sit, others will find it pretty gripping crime thriller. It's cool seeing Mekhi Phifer from ER and the Dawn of the Dead remaking this. Rosanna Arquette is also in this and even composed a song for it.
Even William Forsythe.
Yes, he's pretty good here, and it's good to see him not being one of the criminal heavyweights for once. He's just part of the whole Italian scene. So it is what it is. It makes you feel like you're actually in Hell's Kitchen watching some unusual crime caper play out. Yeah, if you've seen Leon the Professional too many times, you might like this kind of low-rent kind of movie. And we got Playing by Heart. I thought this was an okay feel-good movie, but I didn't really take much away from it, despite the all-star cast.
I liked the sort of twist between her and Ryan Phillippe that he has HIV during the 90s, which was still not a lot of information or still very much stigmatized.
Right. And this is back when any kind of just attention deficit disorder or mentality just was either being perfectly portrayed, but a lot of the time it was not perfectly portrayed. It's like, that's not it. That's not it at all. Someone clearly didn't research this. Or met someone who was a rare case and assumed, oh, that must be how everyone acts. I'm like, no. You got to take this very carefully. Alrighty, so yeah, it was not bad. So I guess let's go to her other movie that again gets some award acclaim, and as Gia, the real life model from Philly.
I liked it, and she looks so much like the real Gia.
I mean, it made sense, and I wasn't as crazy about it as others, but I can see where this got her to collaborate with the director on a few other movies. So I should see it again. I just remember for the longest time, everyone would only talk about, again, just the exoticness of this. And it's like, are you actually watching the movie, or are you just, again, just not into biographies. This is a pretty tragic movie, guys, so I would rather you not make fun of it.
Yeah, no, I personally like it, but I also like biography movies, and I think this is generally considered one of the better ones for biographies or memoirs.
It was a big deal. It was an HBO original movie, and even Mila Kunis plays young Jolie, so that says something.
Gia and just everyone who's in it. I mean, is it Elizabeth Mitchell, her name?
Yes.
Yeah, she was in it, and she's good in it. She plays Gia's lover, and
from Frequency and Revolution. Yeah, she's a good actress.
Exactly. So, like, everyone is good. And it is tragic. I mean, she was a heroin addict, bisexual model who died.
Still happens with a lot of these things. People don't realize a lot of these models are kind of outcasts from their family because they either come from a conservative background or they have just a lot of people just making fun of them, and they don't know what to make of their career until they find someone who just says, oh, you got the look. I want you to, pose for this kind of magazine we got. And
well, the thing that stayed with me in this movie is the story that I'm assuming Gia actually wrote, which is
I think so.
The girl with the blonde hair, and that everyone loved her hair, so she would give them her locks of her hair, and then she goes bald, and then no one wants her anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That always stuck with me, and of course how the actress telling the story portrayed it as the mom, and so it's upsetting. But I've seen it a couple of times. I go back to it every once in a while.
Okay, cool. I mean, because it's very hard to do this and kind of really make a very gripping account, because there's a lot of stories where they just don't even tell the full story, and I think this one eclipsed a lot of it. It was just kind of just not seen by as many people because it was made for TV. But
as you said, it's one of the first HBO original stuff that. But I think rightfully so got acclaimed for her performance.
Yep, Golden Globe. So there you go. Screen Actors Guilds. There you go.
There you
go. Okay, next up we got. Ooh, yeah. Then there's that comedy Pushing 10, which I think John has seen and I've seen, but each time I've never remembered what happened.
Same here. I forgot she was in that.
That, Kate Blanchett, John Cusack. So I've talked about this damn movie 3 times now.
And you don't remember it?
I don't remember it. I know this is definitely where she meets Billy Bob and that
Yeah.
thing's. So there you go.
I remember it.
I just remember it was like a dark comedy about basically.
Air traffic control.
Yeah, air traffic guys
So
controlling
nice.
planes and being unprofessional.
Such a weird, specific profession, and we're like, what do we care about these guys? And then they make a whole film about it. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I definitely can't vouch for this one at all. It's like anything that would have been interesting was just kind of like it either got rewritten too many times or they were trying to go for some kind of Fargo, I guess, kind of look and feel, and it didn't even go
And
to.
the reason why people talk about it is because of Billy Bob and Angelina.
So there you go. It's like when it's a movie like Jiggly where it's atrociously bad and everyone just remembers, oh, that's where famous celebrities got involved. And it's like, well, so it's not good, is it? Okay, next up, we got, all right, another movie I have revisited and liked on much better occasion is The Bone Collector.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
When did either of you see this?
During my binge of who Angelina is, I was just curious about her. But I actually have a fun story that I met the director, Philip Noyce.
Nice.
And I
Love him.
interviewed him for a film festival. And what he did during the film festival is he made us do an exercise he does for all his films, which is based, like, you walk around the circle, half of the group is blind, the other one isn't, to build trust. But he does that with everybody, cast, crew, because he wanted to show, like, it doesn't matter if you're the sound person or the main lead, like, or the cinematographer or the PA, like, everyone is a necessity here and we have to work together as a team.
I love that mentality because that's so true. Everyone acts like first 3 names I see, that's all that matters. It's like, no, everybody matters. If the sound guy is screwing up, you got no movie.
Exactly. So it was really good. And then he was quite, he was very nice. He's very tall. At least 6'4".
Not gonna mess with him.
Nope.
And yeah, but like while we were doing this, because I did some research before I went to go interview him, I was like, oh, he's worked with Angelina. So while I was walking around, I was like, oh my God, Angelina did this same exact thing. Oh my God. That's how much of a fan I am. So
no, that's cool because I mean, a first impression counts for a lot, especially if you're going to be working with people for half a year. Yeah. So even 2 years if it's that extensive. So it's like, yeah, you got to have some level of sanity. It can't just be people joking around and nothing's getting done. And I do have to say, she and Denzel have an interesting kind of dilemma here because this kind of starts her brief streak in being in a few psycho thrillers, and it's definitely similar to, again, Seven, let alone a Law and Order kind of episode, and it really doesn't get all that violent until like the last 20 minutes. But
I still remember how the guy like takes Denzel's finger. I was like, oh man, now the last thing he had.
I forgot about that, and then he's threatening to take out his eye. And
it's a good one.
Ted Bundy from, not Bundy, but from Married with Children.
Oh yeah.
And O'Neill.
Yeah.
Modern Family. Yeah.
There you go. Al Bundy. Why did I say Ted Bundy? That would be terrible.
Would
Different
be.
kind of serial killer here. Queen Latifah gets to work here as sister and nurse, and it's just so ironic. She's nursing her brother back to health, and
I forgot they were related.
That's what I kind of like. It's just like this is the beginning of her kind of doing a lot of dramatic stuff before she just goes back to I'm Latifah, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do think it's kind of a sleeper, just both as a movie. I know Noyce wasn't as crazy about the movie in like some interview, according to IMDb, but to be fair, I mean, the script, I think, I think it was just one of those. It was kind of basic, and then it just kind of slowly got a little better just as it went on. And that's okay. I mean, it's going to be a like it or hate it movie anyway. But for those of us who want a chase thriller that's not too over the top, I think this is one of the better ones. Because
if you like the genre, you'll enjoy this.
Yeah,
Enjoy
it's definitely more accessible than some of those others. Because for a while, everyone was imitating Silence of the Lambs, to where it's like, good God, that's just so out there. No,
Yeah.
it does not happen that way. It's just Hollywood. All right, so let's jump into Gone in 60 Seconds. That's sway. She definitely had some sway.
I'll say that.
I don't remember this. I remember seeing it, but I never saw it again. And I always mean to because I love his GIF or GIF where he's like, "All right, I'm ready." Nicholas. That's the only reason why I kind of want to watch it again.
I've said this before to John. They should have just done a movie about the detectives, Delroy Lindo and Timothy Oliphant, and left to this fucking crew, because I can't stand the rest of this whole crew. I think Jolie's cool. I like that she's playing kind of a tough gal, and unlike anyone else, not being risque or stupid or anything. But honestly, I mean, this is just a weird predicament, because I don't know if we would have had as many movies like Ocean's 11. But at the same time, this is pretty low rent Ocean's 11 type movie. Yeah. It seems like everyone just talks about the score, which I will admit is good, but the rap artists and the electronic guys that are on the soundtrack. But I'm just like, yeah, I could not get into any of this. I think the chase scenes are just very uninspired. And
they really are.
The Stinker Awards were still going on at this point, and they nominated her for Worst On-Screen Hairstyle and lost to John Travolta and Forrest Whitaker for Battlefield Earth. I'm like, I'm sorry. I disagree on both those accounts. Those guys have awesome hair. Are both these movies awful? Sure. But I'll actually take Battlefield Earth over this shitfest just because I love making fun of that stupid movie so much. And this one, I just don't feel like if you're going to do a heist movie, the crew has to really be a lot of fun to just follow around and see Out of Sight, Oceans, and even Now You See Me. You'll want to follow all those wacky, nutty characters around, Even Reservoir. And it's like they got Vinnie Jones in here, and he does virtually nothing. They got freaking Giovanni Ribisi, who's playing. He's such a stupid person that you don't even really care for Nick Cage to even rescue his awful brother. It's like, yeah, he's worse than you. Why do you want to rescue him again? Oh, because loyalty. So I think, if anything, this gave birth to all the Fast and Furious type movies, and that's for that reason alone. I really do not like this. It just reminds me of all the other awful movies that have come out since, so I just pretty much associate it with that. I should have left after watching 60 seconds of it. I'll just say that.
From I remember, isn't she barely in that, if I remember correctly?
Yeah. I don't think she really had much to do, so I don't really blame her. I mean, this was definitely where you start. I mean, there's plenty of other actors like Robert Duvall, and he's barely in it too. So it's just like, I think this was where you started seeing studios just start over marketing every kind of movie, and people would remember that certain people were in certain movies, but they wouldn't remember whether or not they actually did anything significant in said film. It's like, yeah, because now everyone's name means a lot more, so now they're just over marketing and overcharging all these expensive movies that suck because it's been so much just trying to get funding. And it's like, okay, this would have been better maybe as an indie comedy, and then they could have maybe done something more with it instead of, let's just have very expensive MTV style, edits and forget about that. And let alone you're doing a rehash of a movie that was also known for having virtually no plot and just being one nonstop car chase. And I get that car enthusiasts, that's enough. For me, that's not enough. Car chases in many cases for me are often the worst part of any movie because they're either over edited or poorly shot, or you take it out and nothing in the movie changes. Like, take out 3 different car chases, I guarantee you, in something like Lethal Weapon 4, the movie does not change at all. It just actually makes it shorter.
Yeah.
And it's like when when I can't even remember what the whole point of the movie is, where the car chases, let alone just don't like the characters. It's just wrong sauce. So I'm gonna move on now. I spent too much time on this damn thing. John, tell us some awesome stories about discovering Tomb Raider and the outstanding soundtrack.
Oh man, this is one that I particularly grew up with as a kid, and it's one of the very few video game films that I actually like, unlike other people that I know that just love to go after this one quite a bit.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. I just didn't. I don't think I'd put it up there like as the best of the best, but I mean,
Well, no, it's not the best, but
it's definitely watchable. I can't stand the graphics nowadays, but there's still some interesting chase scenes, and it is kind of fun seeing Daniel Craig, pre Bond
it's
fame.
true. It's also interesting to see, well, just going to the sequel also with Gerard Butler being in there.
Yeah. We can talk about both movies back to back.
Right, yeah.
I guess you could say part 2 has a little more script problems, but there's definitely some better action there, and I'm just glad that I applaud any star who can do any kind of franchise, because I'm just glad that as an actor they got a chance to revisit some kind of character, let alone be part of some kind of spectacle. So I'll just leave it at that. I think both movies just have stunts aplenty and varying degrees of CGI and plot, but it's all just it's cool that she got a chance to be close to some kind of James Bond kind of escapade.
James Bond
like
and the drone smile, I like to call it.
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead, Tara.
No.
Oh, I was gonna say it's the beginning of her becoming an action star.
Totally.
And
Oh, definitely.
yeah, right. And yeah, I saw this after the most recent Tomb Raider with Alicia Vikander,
Yeah.
and I have to say, I enjoyed the plot of this one more because it's all about the Illuminati, which maybe because of Beyonce and Jay-Z we can't talk about anymore.
The Illuminati.
But the production, you're right. Like, you're kind of distracted now because it's not as good. But like, both films are really fun. So.
For sure. Alrighty. Yeah, we've talked about Original Sin before, and as we've said before, this is just a fun movie. The Godfather done as a romance movie.
Which one?
Original Sin.
Original Sin. Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked it.
It was fun. See it, people. Don't be a killjoy like all the critics. So that takes me to the next one. Life or Something Like It.
With that, like, speaking of The Godfather, like, they took Kay's hair, Diane Keaton's wig, and dyed it really bleach blonde and put it on her head. I don't
That's
understand.
so true.
I was like, what the hell is this? But other than the hair, it's cute.
I didn't see it for the longest time just because no one could ever come to grips with whether or not it was a good movie or not. But yeah, it's often shown on channels like Oxygen or TBS. I think it's an interesting Groundhog's Day kind of rehash. I guess you could say the movie played it safe, but I'd rather it play it safe than get too cliche, let alone be edgy and just absolutely backfire.
It didn't try to be anything it's not, and it's not a great movie. It's just fun.
Yep. Hey, Adrian Monk's in this one too. Stockard Channing, yeah. So it was a fun cast. So next up, let's go to the tragic war movie she's in. I'm sure this also is part of what makes her say, I want to actually become a real-life activist and help people in Darfur. And that is Beyond Borders.
Definitely. I liked it, and I remember SNL had a really silly skit about it.
They did? Oh my god.
With Kelly Ripa as Angelina Jolie.
Oh god.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that one.
You've seen
I
that.
remember that.
John's our big SNL guy, so...
Yeah.
Right? And they're like, Beyond Borders.
Holy
Or
fuck.
something.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking at the trivia on here. Jesus Christ, the Razzies hate Angelina Jolie. Now I know why to disown them in the first place. Jesus, she's not a bad actress.
And I guess like I think it's one of those where like they appreciate a film that's not been perfect, which is most films. But I enjoyed this. I liked her and Clive Owen together.
Yeah.
again, this is like it was Lara Croft and Beyond Borders really introduced her into that world, and when she makes the sequel of Lara Croft, by that time she had adopted Maddox, her first child, and they said the scene with her in the sequel with the little girl about asking for gum, the producers and stuff, they're like, you could tell like becoming a mother changed her, and she was so much warmer and approachable, particularly with children. Otherwise she felt kind of misunderstood and kind of wanted to push her buttons, and now we're seeing a different kind because she's now a mother. And I always thought that was a really cool thing. You'll see this transition of where her priorities lied.
Absolutely, and there's not enough tales about this told nowadays. I always appreciate a movie that talks about, again, just efforts in just war-torn countries. In this case, it's Ethiopia, African country, and then, I mean, the ending is just so tragic, going through the landmine field, and it's very well put together by Martin Campbell. That's right.
I love Martin too. Yeah. I remember my mom and I watched it, and he's like, "Are you wearing perfume? Why are you wearing perfume?" And my mother's like, please, you love smelling her." Kind of. So, it was really funny.
That's true. Sad movie. Very underrated. Okay. So, Taking Lives.
I liked it a lot. And again, it's
much like Bone Collector. I did not care for it when I first saw it, but I saw it again years later and was like, yeah, this is better than some of the other movies. I'll take this and The Watcher any day over, say, I don't know, Fear.com, all those other awful.
Like, if you like
Or Twisted.
Or Twisted, or that awful one with Diane Lane and Colin Hanks that was just by the guys who did Primal Fear. And I was just like, yeah, so before movies became just awful Saw type knockoffs, it's like this one was better because it was like kind of an international kind of unit. It was kind of like Criminal Minds a year before, and I mean, it opens up with her like in one of the grave sites, and I like how it establishes how all the detectives are very uncanny. Any of them could be the killer, kind of like Crimson Rivers with John Reno, who we've covered on here. It's just, I know Ethan Hawke kind of had long story short, Jolie is implied to be one of the two people he's had an affair with while he was still married.
Yeah, and I don't know about that, but
they apparently were seen at a hotel together, so it was like, yeah, I can buy it.
I could buy it, but also, and they did have pretty good. That is one hot sex scene that gets destroyed when they screw in front of a bunch of dead bodies, but like photos of a dead body.
Oh, that's what I don't like either. Is just everyone just talks about all the risque stuff she's been in. It's like, can you just watch the movie and appreciate it, guys? I mean, I'm not one of those who just gets taken out of a movie by content. I'm not. I've always considered content is just complementary to a movie, and I know Hawk didn't really like working on this movie because after that, all he got was just more of these kinds of movies that he felt weren't his best work. And so I think he later kind of embraced it again when he was just doing a few other movies, but we can't all be happy. So I know for the longest time the trailer gave so much away.
It really did.
You think Kiefer Sutherland is the main serial killer? Is like, well, not exactly. He's a bad guy in it, but he's not the main.
But
evil Jack Bauer.
On the director's cut.
There's a director's cut?
Is it director's cut?
Is that the one that's unrated? Okay.
Yeah, the unrated version.
That's what it was. Okay. It's like...
The big thing that I remember noticing the difference was that, like, you see the mom's head get detached in the elevator. I was like,
oh, yeah.
What the fuck was that? And there's a couple of other scenes, but that one, like, stuck with me. I was like, okay, yeah, that's a bit much.
Definitely not the scene you see on cable TV. Yeah.
No.
I can't. You like these genres, and you're right. It's better than most, but it's no Silence of the Lambs, no Seven. But if you like those things, it's fun.
Much like John here, I kind of have found that DJ Caruso's kind of been a whatever director after this, but when he first started out with this and The Shield, it seemed like his career was going somewhere, and it's like, yeah, this is definitely something I'd be proud of compared to some of his other stuff he's done recently.
Oh yeah, good Leo stuff.
Oh yeah, I couldn't get into Disturbia, but I could totally get into this one.
Same here.
Alrighty, so moving on. Speaking of director's cuts, how many versions of Alexander are there?
Oh my God, is there more than one?
There's 3 different versions, and I hate all 3 versions. I don't
Oh.
care what anyone says. There is no saving this movie. I
No.
have tried.
Terrible.
I've
saw
never
the-
actually seen this movie still to this day.
I've seen, I think, the basic version that was edited on, of all channels, either USA or Sci-Fi Channel, and was okay with it, I guess, in a lazy way, but it didn't, much like Wyatt Earp with Kevin Costner, it left me with nothing. And so when I was done just kind of breathing in the movie, so to speak, I was like, yeah, this told me absolutely nothing. So I guess that 3 hours was a waste of time.
It was. So I'm Persian,
Such a big cast.
and it's
Yeah.
like, Rosario Dawson, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, she's mixed, but she is not at all Persian. She's, if
No.
anything, Caribbean or Dominican. I could see her
And
playing,
I
but
remember this
Persian.
in high school, and there was a Greek kid, and then me, and we would talk about this movie. They're like, "Did you hear it?" And he's like, "This is stupid. That Irish boy's gonna go get sunburn in Greece." And I'm like, "At least yours is from the actual continent, so that you're
right.
You know what I mean?"
She
And I
was
was
supposed to be from Sogdia or Baustrian, and it's like,
thanks, but she's not anywhere near,
no.
let alone Persian.
And that scene she's in has virtually nothing to do with the rest of the movie. Take it out. It's just like, yeah, there's really nothing to this movie. And
Yeah, there was a review that said the only good thing is Rosario Dawson's boobs. And I was like, well, I think Angelina looks really pretty in it, but no, it's really shit. It's truly a stupid movie.
it really is. Just all the dream scenes are just like,
Right.
Oliver, I get where you're going, Oliver, but stick to something just more basic and then build on it.
Oliver still says, he's like, that movie is probably misunderstood. I'm like, no, Oliver, that movie is stupid and shitty. Like,
Yeah.
of all people, you really...
How do you waste freaking Anthony Hopkins, Val Kilmer, Brian Blessed, Christopher Plummer, Jonathan Rhys Meyers? Jesus, the list goes on.
And I remember they were going to make a movie about Alexander the Great with either, the rumor was Heath Ledger or Leonardo DiCaprio.
I remember that. It was like, it was
And
a
I
big
was like,
deal. They were talking about it. They would not let it go.
Everything.
Yeah, and the casting on this movie, holy fuck. How is Jolie and Colin Farrell the same age and she's playing his mom? It's just like, she
Yeah.
looks slightly older, but not by much. It's just,
4 years older, almost to the day.
and they imply some incest. They don't show it, but it's just one of those. It's like, okay, so Oliver, whatever you find interesting, newsflash, other people don't.
Yeah. JFK, like whether you agree or not with what happened, is a pretty decent film. Like he's done decent films, but it
Oh,
really
he totally has, but like Spike Lee, when he's had his bad blunders where it's like, whatever you intended, I mean, thank God you got more good movies than bad, because
that's fair. Yeah.
you're one step away from Brian De Palma, where like, oh, just remember his first initial movies. I forget all about the rest, because I mean, Coppola could have probably done something like this and made it very, just very, very thematic, very intriguing, and it's not even a good sword and sandal movie. This was coming out around the same time as just other spectacles, fiction or not, like Troy and Pirates of the Caribbean, and this comes out, and I remember virtually everybody just thought it was just terrible, like kids, adults. It's like no one had. It was a laughing roster the whole day.
I saw this on Thanksgiving.
Oh.
And I remember my mom and I went, and we wanted to like see, because that's the other thing. It's like, oh, like they had an Irishman play Mesopotamian, like what would be Greece now,
Yeah.
all that stuff, and then Persia is a big part of it, but then
They
it
didn't do
isn't.
enough research.
And then we watched it and we got supersized popcorn and Coke that could be free refills, and we're like, we're not gonna finish this. And we watched this film, and we're like, oh my God, I'd rather throw up popcorn than deal with this shit. So we literally just started talking during the movie and just ate popcorn. There was no one else in the theater because it's Thanksgiving.
Good on you. Because
Yeah.
director's cut apparently removed 17 minutes, and then it's like he did a third final unrated cut. I think I saw that, and there was just extended battles and
Patience you have.
and whoever it was at the AV Club who named it the 10th best film of 2014 by looking at the ultimate cut, screw you. I'm sorry. This is like that. I could try, but I really have nothing positive to say about this movie other than that I thought there was some solid I, Claudius or other Shakespearean style sets and costumes, but wardrobe is not enough to commend a movie.
No.
I'm sorry.
The makeup and hair for the men alone is
Oh,
attractive.
yeah, that's true. Okay, so decent crowns and everything, but I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, some of the cast members could have really gotten into the roles, but I mean,
There's talent there, but like the talents are there. They just are not being portrayed in this film.
Right. Like, we all know how talented and yet what a real life diva Val Kilmer is in real life. And it's like, when this is worse than any of his direct-to-video crap that was coming out around this time, that does say a lot. Watch Spartan from that same year. Don't watch this. And like you say, some of these actors could have worked, but they should have just, like, if you're going to portray any of these, just think for a minute how you're going to even just show this whole movie. Like, I'm sure even Hopkins is older than or younger than whatever old, Puritan he's playing there, who's just looking around and narrating the movie. And it's like, yeah, I mean, show them at different points in the movie. Like, yeah, I could have totally bought Angelina and Val as Alexander's parents, but don't show them in the same scenes,
with Colin and
Yeah.
put lines of pretend wrinkles on her face.
Exactly. It's just like, I mean, much like Julius Caesar, I mean, most every dictator or ruler, no one else was relevant in his life except him. So why not just make a movie about what a selfish, conqueror they were, and then just build on that, how there's other people who want to kill them and bring up all that other deceit in a kingdom that would have been intriguing. And it's like, they don't even do that. They just kind of just show all the... It's just a very scattershot attempt at a narrative. I hardly... I don't want to call it a narrative because that's offensive to narrative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Like, the accents are stupid, even though, like, all of them can do pretty decent English accents. But
Yeah.
that...
They didn't even bother. It's just like Oliver just kind of puts the cameras on and just... No one was giving him notes. It's just like... He must have just threatened anyone. If anyone comes near my movie, I will fuck you up. It's just like, well, it's okay to have someone on set making notes because those are the people who do catch things that don't work or that are gonna just... If you have too many things that take people out of a movie, then you gotta do it, and that it's better to have advisors on set and have them do more than just, say something when called upon. They should actually be asking the director and telling all the other people who are getting stuff in shot, hey, how would you, lean out of that shot a bit? I don't think anyone's going to buy that unconvincing extra or that, again, cut that scene, please. That's not how we talk.
Okay.
And like you say, is like everyone confuses notes with, a producer coming down who everyone hates. And it's like, no, I'm not just saying that. I'm saying have other people who are there for what their title implies, a translator, stand-in, or...
Can you imagine being the editor of this? And like, oh...
no, I would take my name off it. I would be like,
Right?
I will work with anyone except Mr. Stone again. Alrighty, so next up, she has a cameo as a revolutionary in the psychological drama by HBO called The Fever. I think I saw it, but I don't remember it in it.
I've never seen this, and I only recently saw it when you asked me to do this. I'm like, what the fuck is this on IMDb?
Yeah, it was one of those. If you go through I still have cable. I know most people have given up, but often when you click on an actor's name or face, you can record whatever movie they're in, set it to record, and I had forgotten. Oh, that's right. That's why I recorded this movie, because she's in it. But yeah, I don't remember her character. I do know that, again, 04 is a big year for her. She's got,
Yeah.
again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 movies. Not 5, not 4, 6. And I will say, I do think she was the best part of Sky Captain.
She really was.
And I didn't know they made a video game of it, but that makes sense because apparently they use footage from the movie and they show that footage because, like, yeah, I don't want to see the rest of that fucking movie. I want to see her eye patch Captain America Nick Fury type guy who's leading all these Rocketeers into action, because it's just, I'm sorry, Jude Law and Gwyneth Paltrow just had no charisma, and I got where the movie was going for all the, old serials, but I did not find any of it entertaining. And I'm trying to be very nice because I realized that the filmmakers involved with this, they had so many ideas that were shot down or not ripped off to where they just basically gave up Hollywood. And it's like, I don't want to be mean to those guys, but I really do not like this movie. I know what it's going for. I mean, I watched Mystery Science Theater. I know about all the Commander Cody stuff. That was cool. I've seen The Rocketeer. That's amazing. But I do not like this movie.
It's cute that she is working with Jude Law because they were friends. Like, he's
they're like old flames implied
at her wedding, all that stuff and stuff. But it's not a good movie.
No, but it is cool kind of how she does have some. This is where I kind of really dug her persona, and before I even realized, where I was not really attaching myself to who I did or didn't like. I just, at that point, I was 14, so I was just watching movies that I had heard some good stuff about before I kind of attached myself to any talent or rumors or any other bullshit. And it's like, yeah, no, I really like her tomboy attitude in this. How she's like, "Are you ready, Rangers? Let's set out." And they do kind of imply that they're like ex-flames, and she's like, "This is the last time I help you out. You can come onto my battleship, but you cannot sink it."
Yeah.
In that same year, plays the pretty fish, Lola, in A Shark Tale.
Which is the only reason why I watched it.
It was definitely one of those where I did not care for it in the theater. This was like the first DreamWorks movie I saw, and I did not care for. But then I saw it a year later because we would almost always rent something that we'd seen in the theater. Often, if we didn't rent it again, we had forgotten about it, or we really didn't like it and we weren't going to relive the torture. But I thought it was okay on the better watch, but I can kind of see why there's just too many cooks in the kitchen,
Yeah.
It's weird. Yeah, because, I mean, you really are just kind of... It's basically a gangster movie as a fish movie, and it's just like, I see, shark, get it, loan shark, and it's just like, I mean, don't get me wrong, Will Smith has some fun lines, but it's just like, yeah, since I'm not even a cartoon guy, I don't think I would even come back to this. I would just rewatch the first or second Shrek, or maybe the first Madagascar. I don't think I'll come back to this one. And I mean, it was nominated for Best Animated Feature by the Academy Awards. I'm like, not even. No, nope. Not even. I mean, I could see it being a like it or hate it movie. I cannot see it being a best of the year. Come on, dude.
No.
Just because it's a movie does not mean you have to say it's the best of the year. Yeah, following that, she does have a hysterical cameo in Confessions of an Action Star.
Oh, I didn't see that.
So it's basically, it's kind of like Black Dynamite, where it's just making fun of a stupid Schwarzenegger kind of star going around. It has a lot of Matrix people in here, as well as Ernie Hudson and Eric Roberts.
Oh, of course, Eric Roberts.
And a bunch of other comedians. It's just making fun, and like it constantly goes in and out. It has a better user rating than it does an actual score. I think it's an okay movie, although very clearly uneven. If they could have just been a little more organized. It's also known as Sledge, the Untold Story, but yeah, I think it needed at least one more re-edit before it was just ready to go.
Got it?
Kelly Hu from Scorpion King and Martial Law is also in here, but yeah, Angelina Jolie, I think you can YouTube her funny mock interview and made it worth it.
I didn't even know about this, so I will.
I mean, because her cameo is just both candid and just kind of a lot of fun. It was just kind of paying tribute to the genre of cult actors getting into goofy blockbusters. So let's talk about Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
From this one. I remember this. First, they were going to have Nicole Kidman as Mrs. Smith. Then they were going to have Zeta Jones. Then they went on.
Both John and I lit up.
Which, of course, I think then they realized, or no, thankfully it wasn't her, because notoriously Ocean's 12 or 13 is bad chemistry between Catherine and Brad. But oh well.
Yeah. Let's not repeat.
But then it was, yeah, it's an interesting thing because everyone, I mean, I don't know if and it's none of our fucking business if they started an affair while making this, but it's also, there was like people who are like, oh, she fought to be on that fucking movie. And I'm like, no, she didn't. I mean, I remember reading, because he, I think, was the first to be attached to it, and then it just kept getting delayed because the Mrs. Smith couldn't commit to it. And then they're like, who else is a good action star? Like, they're like, Angelina, can she do comedy? And we're like, I don't fucking know. And then they had her.
Want her to be beautiful, dangerous person.
Right, yeah, exactly. And she admitted, she's like, Brad has good comic, like the point where he accidentally shoots her car, and he's like, oh dear God, that is improv. And all sorts of stuff. Like, he has good instincts, and she has talked about, like, he taught me those instincts to just, because she's been mostly action or drama and not many.
It's a good movie that more people have heard of but not actually seen. And like you say, I think it successfully reinvents the whole, even years before we had other outrageous shows like Chuck and Scorpion.
Yeah,
I mean, this kind of continued True Lies, and it's definitely way better than, say, Night and Day with Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz. This one was just better at just, I think the trailer just wrecked it because it just looked shitty. I saw part of it on TV, wasn't really digging it, but I saw it years later in college, and I was like, I really dig this movie. This is very stylish. I mean, Doug Liman was the perfect filmmaker for this to repeat his Bourne identity, because he knows how to get in some just dry wit and utter perfect one-liners and tactical stealth.
And he directed the pilot to the OC, and Adam Brody really liked working with him. So when Doug was like, could you come on for 2 seconds to be with Brett?
I did not know that.
Okay, Doug, for you, I'll do that. If I was slapped by Angelina, I'll do it just for you.
Right. It does do some interesting mock and everything. And like to say, I mean, everyone, again, likes to just associate this with, again, real life stuff. And I think that's just it. That just distracted everyone from actually seeing the movie. It's just like, tabloids were way worse than they are now. I mean, they're bad to where you'll just see everyone just, slut shaming people or just, again, just calling them every awful word on the internet. And this is before you get all the alt-rights and incels and neo-Nazis coming out making distasteful comments, and the FBI raiding their internet. But I mean, back then, I mean, it could really make or break a movie when you were just getting rumors or people dating, or all people could just say is, I like so-and-so. I find so-and-so hot. That's enough for me to go to a movie. And I was just always of the caliber of, if I think it's a good premise, I'll see the movie, but holy shit, I'm not going to sit through a movie just because I find someone attractive. Good God.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or because there's one violent or sexy scene. I mean, and I mean, I was restricted. I was only going to be allowed to watch movies if they were like modified for TV. So, my household was like, well, maybe we'll show you that movie, but we're,
I mean, and also I still run to the soundtrack to Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It's a good jogging, running.
Really? Okay. I think that was, let me see who did that soundtrack. It wasn't John Powell. Oh, it is John Powell. Okay, yeah, so I have heard that soundtrack.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like it.
It's one of the, I didn't realize it was also produced by Summit Entertainment years before they were the Lionsgate guys. So
I didn't know that. No. It unfairly didn't get its moment. But
it definitely should have just been rated R, and they should have just used the director's cut, because that is a way more complete movie. You actually get an idea that they like each other, and there's some other off-color stuff. Vince Vaughn gets some other amusing stuff that plays into the dark comedy moments of it. It's like you needed that.
She's in it, and I remember her in it. She's her friend.
Oh, who? Sorry.
Kerry Washington.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I forgot about her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, director's cut, because I didn't know there was one actually.
Yeah, Angela Bassett, William Fichtner have some cameos and voice cameos. I think even Keith David has. So it's like, like you say, I mean, some movies just deserve a second shot, and I think this is one of them. Just because
I'd say that.
Like you say, it's a very energetic and it's not a stupid movie, but that's just it. Because we look at the poster and the trailer, it's just very misadvertised. And it's like there is some legit, very funny moments in this.
Yeah,
it really was.
Alrighty, so next up, another spy movie. She's not playing a spy, just the wife of one, called The Good Shepherd.
Yeah, this was boring. I'm not gonna lie. And again, my mother, with her honesty, it's Eddie Redmayne plays their son when he grows up, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, older.
And my mom, ruthlessly in the theater, she's like, "I'm sorry, Matt Damon's your dad, Angelina's your mom, and you get freckles over here." I'm like, "Mom," she's like, "Come on, this is as bad as when Dr. Zhivago and how Omar Sharif and Christy, what is her name? Anyway, and the daughter,
okay.
daughter, and they're like, "Where the fuck did you get the genes for that? Like, why did you guys think this would make sense to have their offspring look like this?" I was like, "Mom, you're so mean," and she's like, "But it's true." So, but I mean, and I love spy movies. I just thought it was really, and I was excited for this movie, but it's really slow. That's what I remember from it.
I know many people who absolutely hate this one, but I feel you. I don't think it's the best of the best. I just was a big fan of Robert De Niro, like directing movies, like Following a Bronx Tale.
Yeah.
There was a very candid interview I remember looking at YouTube that had Jolie, De Niro, and Matt Damon all on Charlie Rose. Years before Scandal, everyone. We only knew him as the good interviewer. I do dig the cast. I do kind of like the Cold War mentality, and for Damon, it just seemed like a natural fit, just showing this guy who just gets brainwashed into being a CIA informant. And the rest of the cast was pretty good. Joe Pesci coming out of retirement for a brief segment as a contact, John Turturro, even Lee Pace, years before Hobbits and Guardians, Timothy Hutton in a brief key role, Billy Crudup, and even freaking Alec Baldwin, William Hurt. So, yeah, I dug this, but I wouldn't ever say it's a must-see. You gotta watch it. It's more for us spy enthusiasts, and Jolie, I thought, just was perfect as, like, you gotta either choose me or the job, it's like, and just saying, I don't even recognize you anymore. You broke my heart, and it just was a perfect portrayal.
Yeah, and it's different from her. Like, you would expect her to be the spy and not the housewife, but they switched it kind of, like, she did the opposite of what you expect, and it shows her range personally.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And next up, A Mighty Heart, where she plays the real life. She wasn't a journalist. Yeah, she was a reporter for Wall Street Journal who was kidnapped in 2002.
Yeah, and they say this would never get made today because she's
not at all. It's too true to real life. Like, the most you can convince people is probably just, doing a war movie where there's at least some escapism within the real life story. And like you say, it's hard to market this kind of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, it's sad.
The critics for this are pretentious as fuck. A lot of them called it the 10th best movie of 2007. Disagree. There was a bunch of other people saying her performance is restrained and dignified. Feels like an extra long episode of 24. 24 isn't boring.
Right.
I've watched it twice. Both she and Will Patton are great, but I just find it very I gotta be careful how I restrain this. I
Yeah,
feel it's not the most imaginative,
Yeah.
but it's somewhat well filmed, but it's also just leaves a lot to be desired. And at the same time, I think it's a good story to cover. You definitely should cover kind of stuff like this, because this isn't even about someone trying to do their job and facing censorship or just any barriers as a journalist, but more just, she's kidnapped by dangerous people who she's covering a portion of, and they're trying to find her, and I think it just could have just been way better organized. I feel like someone else could have really tackled into this way better, and it's better than a lot of the other ones, because don't get me wrong, as I was talking with John 2 days ago when we did our Peter Berg episode, we talked about how we dug The Kingdom, and it wasn't easy to watch at first because there was just so much other war propaganda that was just doing the whole gung-ho, yeah, and it was just disgusting. It's like, nah, dude, I don't even want to think about it. 9/11 is just tragic as it is. I don't want to think about what's going on over there, and I don't want you acting like it's one-sided. It's like, no, you can't tell me there's not any war crimes or terrible, mercs going over there causing even more trouble and making this war be elongated. No. It doesn't just end after just because you got a bigger dick or more guns. It ends when it ends. It's like, and I think A Mighty Heart, I think it got some attention because, again, it was covering war type events, but I think you're really just only going to remember just the two main performances.
Yeah.
Okay, next up. I actually saw this in the theater. What do we think as playing the main character's demonic mother in Beowulf? Not the main character, it's Grendel's mom. My bad. My bad. She's Grendel's mother, that's right. I remember a lot of people finding this kind of amusing because they had just not, she was playing just manipulative, seductive kind of gal, so it was like, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Moving on from that, I don't remember it being anything special.
It really wasn't. It was just kind of like, it was kind of like the God of War video game. Instead of Greek mythology, we're talking about Beowulf here, and it was just like everyone was just so distracted by how A, it's not at all like the Beowulf story, and B, let's see how grosser with the gore we can be in the next segment. And I will admit, it really doesn't have anything going for that, and I do recall just because every character was just acting so stupid and the themes weren't built upon, it just felt like a very lackluster version of the story, I mean, it's got a hell of a cast. You got Robin Wright as the Queen, Brendan Gleeson, and freaking Anthony Hopkins, and it's just like, okay, so... and I like Ray Winstone okay in some movies, not everything, but in this one... I don't know. I just don't feel like he really was up to the pace of carrying the movie. Not that he really had to when he was, again, playing a key role, and there was a few other people who were playing other different roles, and I don't know. Robert Zemeckis has really been very disappointing in years, just embracing technology as opposed to embracing new and different stories. And I just, after Forrest Gump, he just loses me completely. And this is one of those where it's just like, yeah, if you guys see it for the stunts, but if you didn't see it at the time, you really are not missing anything, and I do not recommend it. So
I'd say about that.
Yeah. So let's talk about her second encounter with DreamWorks as Master Tigress in the Kung Fu Panda trilogy and two of the specials.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm not much of an animation person, but
I kind of have left it a while ago, unless it's something very short and wacky like Mike Tyson's Mystery or some other Adult Swim stuff. I feel you. It's like, yeah, I'd rather be just blown away by how a plot is done versus how something is animated, visually realized. Like, visually, I want to actually look at actual shots of film, not how a cartoon was storyboarded. It just doesn't have the same realization to me. I understand why they cast her in this. They wanted her to be a feisty role, literally, and it's kind of one of those where it's just like, okay, well, I don't find myself coming back to this because this is where I felt like DreamWorks was just trying to do too much catch up with Pixar. And
Yeah.
John and I have talked about the sequels before, where it's like we talked about it even ironically on Gary Oldman's episode. We're like, stick with the first one. You don't have to see any of the sequels.
Sure.
There's just something about it where it just got too goofy for its own good. Madagascar was way more mindless fun than those. Is like those just got way too oversaturated to where it's like, I like all these actors, but I'd rather they be in a better movie than these movies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember her being basically the standoff Kung Fu Panda, honestly.
Pretty much, and it's just like, and there was no reason for it either. It's just like they just needed someone to be a bitch, and it was just like, that's not really. I don't really approve of that kind of character development. Someone should actually. It's the same thing when you have a boss in a movie who's shitty. It's like you got to explain why they're shitty. You know, give them a persona. Like even in campy stuff, like say Office Space, it's just like you got to actually explain why they're a douchebag. Don't just be like, hey, here they are, they're douchebags. Like, you can do the characterization in maybe 2 minutes versus an hour, but don't just throw them at us and just there's no reason for why they're awful. Like, I get the same way when I watch a Western. I'm like, I get that they're an outlaw. Why are they an outlaw who's raiding, pillaging, and raping and killing everybody in the town? I don't want an actor just playing to the camera. That's not enough for me. It's enough for some people. I'm not one of them. I need an actual character arc. All right. So enough of that. If you like cartoons, you'll like it, but it's hardly a noteworthy role for her. So here we go with another hit that same year. And this is where, again, I'm just noticing, hey, she's the tough gal in every movie. Wanted.
Yes. No?
I think the stunts are good. I do got to say, the plot is something else.
Yeah.
You got to literally turn your brain off because it's really not entertaining plot-wise. But I do like her and McAvoy's persona. And I wasn't surprised when I saw Arnold Schwarzenegger in a recent interview. They're asking him, what movie did you see? Oh, I saw Wanted. It was the best movie of the year. The stunts in it are exceptional.
It's also a movie I want to. I do say, like, when people, this is what I say. I was like, you're an Angelina Jolie fan when people ask you to confirm which tattoos are real and which tattoos are fake. And I saw it with my dad, and he, before we went in, because you knew from the trailer, like, she would have a bunch of tattoos, and I'm like, you want to bet which one you'll know is real and fake? And he's like, the one on her back of the tiger is fake. And I was like, nope, that's real. She covered up a tattoo of a window on her lower back with a tattoo of a tiger in Cambodia with like real these like needles, and it's a whole thing and stuff. And it was all, and he's like, shut up, I don't care. And then he goes, the tattoo on her hand is real. And I'm like, that's fake. So kind of thing. It was this back and forth. I really enjoy this movie. And then when he died, my dad died, I watched this, one of the first movies I watched, because A, we watched it together. B, it's like a father trying to look out for his kid. Spoiler. C, Angelina made this film right after her mother died. And she was super close to her mother. And she said, I just needed to be able to like punch things and run and like not have to do anything too much. Like, and so like physically tiring, because I didn't want to kind of deal with grief, sort of. And so she really went full force into this movie.
That makes sense. Yeah, that does kind of, I mean, because it is what it is. It was kind of a Matrix kind of movie, and like you say, I mean,
with the curb the bullet or something, and I was like, I don't think that's possible, but whatever.
No, it's not.
No,
but
it's not.
It embraces its unrealism. It's just one of those you got to be in the mood for, and don't go expecting a must-see plot. I mean, it's just
No,
a
literally
spectacle.
watch a fun action movie. Exactly. If Arnold Schwarzenegger is recommending it, you're like it for
Be
a
careful
thoughtful
about him. Not like he knows what acting is. Acting.
But if you're like, I want to see people kick some ass, and I always think like whenever there's gun control stuff, and I'm like, remember what the knife guy says, it never runs out of bullets, kind of thing.
Right.
So
Common's in this movie. Freaking Morgan Freeman's in there cursing like a mofo.
yeah,
Yeah.
I really enjoy it, and I guess I just have like good memories from it. But yeah, it's not. Yeah, you guys share your thoughts now.
Oh, I probably pretty much did, but I mean that you pretty much summed it up. It is just a fun kind of Saturday or Sunday morning movie. It comes on TV a lot, so I don't know how anyone hasn't seen it already. But at the same time, I mean, she does get a lot to do in this movie too. It's way better than a lot of her other recent earlier roles where she literally was just the pretty face, and that's why everyone thought, oh, she's a bad actress. And it's like, no, just don't mistake the role with the person versus their ability.
And I remember they filmed in Chicago, and I was flipping the fuck out, and I never got to see her, but my friends and I were like, we have a castle. I'm like, no, they also filmed in Europe. I think that's actually Europe and not Chicago.
Well, it helps that they had a Russian director who had done a lot of like it or hate it kind of music video kind of look, and it's definitely better than a lot of his recent stuff.
Okay, yeah.
He remade Ben-Hur with co-star Morgan Freeman.
And he did.
I took one look at that poster and that trailer, and I was like,
I mean,
I usually don't let that break me, but I'm sorry. I love Ben-Hur.
Okay. So yeah,
you do not remake that movie. That to me, don't get me wrong, it's not a perfect movie, and you really just got to watch the last 20 minutes of some of the best carriage, fight scenes and gladiator standoff. But I mean, that would be like if John came up to me right now and said, I'm thinking of redoing a shitty version of Gladiator, or if Tara, you just came up to me and said, we're gonna do a teen version of Lawrence of Arabia. I know. Why? Like,
fair.
When it's one thing to remake a cult movie, let alone a movie that was never good to begin with, but when you remake a movie that is just so admired and again, just so many people have great memories of, it's just like, okay, I can understand if you're doing kind of a more just if it was based on a book or a comic book first, but don't just remake a big historical fiction epic and then just shit on it. But enough of that. We got the Clint Eastwood directed and Babylon 5 creator written true life mystery Changeling.
Yeah. It's sad.
It's very sad. I've only seen it once.
Yeah.
I don't recall Malkovich in this, but I do recall the Bernotis guy, Jeffrey Donovan.
Yeah,
the reporters. It was an interesting kind of true life thing, but yeah, like you say, it's very so gritty, but it gave me a newfound respect for Eastwood, where I was just like, okay, he's not doing just gutsy blood and gut, spectacles. Now he can do just a real life, kidnapping thriller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And J. Michael Straczynski, again, creator of Babylon 5, he hadn't done written for movies for years. And when he submitted the script, he's a good writer, so it made sense that everyone was blown away by how he detailed everything and wrote everything, the dialogue and character descriptions. And they were like, man, where did you come from? And he was like, I've been around for years. I'm just now writing for movies since I'm tired of working in TV and having producers tell me what I can or can't put on air. So I know he has good memories of it, and just like that got him into. Now he's been writing for movies for a while and developing other shows, and he's probably swearing off shows again because again he keeps making great shows that after a few seasons keep getting canceled. So yeah, it would probably he could probably just continue working in comic books, but no, people adopt all his awesome screenplays. He's amazing.
I know. I'm looking at his IMDb. I was like, holy shit. Yeah.
Yeah, John will recognize a bunch. Thor, World War Z, Underworld 5 or whatever, Ninja Assassin, and the
Yeah.
TV show since 8. But yeah, Babylon 5 fan for life. Jeremiah was a great show, and this is definitely one of his best works because he just was able to really give Jolie and the cast members a lot to just detail all these inhabitants of the town. And I mean, it really is kind of a real life Manchurian candidate kind of thing. It's just like, wow, this was government orchestrated. There was a bunch of other just bribery and murders that were, it took years for everyone. Again, it was just so shady. It took years for anyone to connect the dots. It's like, wow, this is one hell of a cover up. A lot of trouble to go to. I mean, so like you say, depressing as fuck. You'll probably only watch it once, but it works on a Chinatown level.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good one.
Exactly.
Except instead of a, you know, town having its water poisoned, it's more just like just all these inhabitants who were just, again, raped and killed and sent to a psych ward just so they wouldn't talk. You know, shh, don't say anything. Good cover-up movie that doesn't get enough attention, especially for performance. And 2 years later, Salt. Yeah, still waiting on that sequel.
I loved it.
Same here.
Oh, do you think it'll ever happen?
Probably not. It's too
Yeah,
good.
probably not this time.
Have you seen the alternate in it? Alternate ending.
What's the alternate ending?
So I haven't seen the DVD or Blu-ray cuts that come with the other versions, but I did see it one day on FX, and they played shortly afterwards the, you know, how the movie ends is what you see in the regular cut, where, you know, she jumps off the plane after, you know, Chiwato Idorafars.
Yeah.
He reluctantly lets her go and just, you know, knocks out the other guard on the copter and says, "I believe you. Don't let me down. I'll make it look good." You know.
Yeah.
But shortly after that, it's a lot of fun because basically it shows you that one of those Russian guys who she kidnapped and was interrogating, you know, she took out all his men on the boat. Then it shows he's basically at another academy, which is the same academy where her, you know, Russian double agent character was, you know, brainwashed as a kid. And she's basically, it's kind of an evil yet very also kind of awesome ending where she's basically set all these bombs to blow up the place. And it's just like, yeah, I know all these other kids are going to be bastards just like me, so I'm going to blow it up.
She kills a bunch of kids?
Yeah, but there's plenty of adults in there as well. And
Weird. I've never seen that. No. But I love
just
it.
to it. Maybe that was her compromise, is like, show the ending, just not, I'm a mother, so don't show it in the theater.
Like, yeah, they were originally, like, Salt was supposed to be a guy, and then they
Yeah, like Tom Cruise, and it reunites her with her bone director writer Philip Noyce, and it just made sense because, I mean, you got the producer of Shooter, Lorenzo Di Bonaventura, who does other stuff like Red movies and G.I. Joe, and then Philip Noyce. I mean, he's done the Tom Clancy movies and Dead Calm, so it makes sense. It's like, and it's definitely done way more for Liev Schreiber, in my opinion. You don't get it.
What made me laugh, like, as soon as I saw Liev Schreiber is in it, I'm like, it's about a Russian spy infiltrating the CIA. Well, it's obviously Liev Schreiber. Look at his name, kind of thing. And then that was and I was like, what?
He's Jewish, Russian, Polish. Yeah, it makes sense.
I was like, this is not a twist, guys. I saw this a mile away, but I love everyone who's in it, like Chiwetel, Liev, Angelina. And it's just a fun movie. It's not very realistic, but
but it embraces the escapism, much like any of the Bourne Identities and even more. But that's just it. Like, to see her play this kind of Nikita kind of role is like, that was cool, but it had a sense of it beforehand, so I could accept, you know, all the, you know, over the top stunts that would normally kill a person.
Exactly.
I do remember, even though the original choice was to work with Tom Cruise, and he's like, no, I can't be typecast, but I can do Mission Impossible movies the rest of my life. That's fine. And I just thought it was funny how I remember Noyce shortly after the premiere was like, I'm thinking of having Ben Affleck or Cruise face off with her in the next one. It's like, why didn't you bring that up?
Yeah.
And I know this is where she starts first working with infamous Sony Pictures producer Amy Pascal,
Uh-huh.
who, as we all know, Pascal and Scott Rudin, absolute pigs. Don't ever work for those pricks. And
Don't know.
it's where,
Now.
yeah, she just starts talking about, I only want to hire Fassbender because I liked how naked he was in that one movie, and Angelina Jolie, she's a total C word. It's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Then don't work with these people if you think they're awful people. And it's just like, you don't say that, let alone in a private email. Say that in a private conversation, but don't say that. And again, if you hate someone, I mean, Jolie did nothing to you, so I mean, what the hell? But yeah, I mean, so it made sense that this was her attempt at doing a James Bond, Tom Clancy kind of adventure, and I think it paid off. This was definitely where I was just realizing, there's plenty of independent movies. This was 2 years after Taken, 3 years after Shooter, so I was really beginning to like action movies again after just years of just saying, nope. This is bad. And yeah, check out all the alternating, all the different endings to the movie. I think it actually adds a lot to the movie as opposed to, oh, that's just a deleted scene and you just put that on the cover as a special feature, you bastards. It's a fun cast, like you say. As long as you accept the over-the-top style, you'll have fun with it. And I mean, I just love the scene where she knocks out all 3 of those agents in the car.
I love that too.
Yeah.
It's just a very well filmed. This is my example of a very well filmed car chase. I like how you get to see a bit of the mother in her when she's seeing a kid just like her while sneaking out of the apartment. I thought that was pretty inspired, pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I remember didn't she say in like some interview, Tara might remember this, where she was just like, I want to prove to my kids that I'm a badass.
Yeah, because they don't believe it. Like, it's mom.
She did some of her stunts, and obviously, guys, not everyone can jump on top of a truck, so you're gonna need a stunt double for that. But it's like, well, that's fine. Some people don't buy the end fight scene. It's like people seem to forget, it's not about size or everything. It's about stealth.
Her trying to escape the CIA and getting that clever. I was like, I like that.
Well, that's just it too, and it's just like I like how he does more implausible things than her, where he's taken out basically everyone at this embassy, these Department of Defense people, and it's like, okay, well, it's okay. I like how she's having to think outside the box, and she doesn't need just a gun. Like, if there's no bullet in it, she can still pistol whip you to death. After putting you in a corner with her elbow, and all that. And it's like, that's what you got to do. And I mean, she's had enough of a background. I buy it, but can't make everyone happy, I guess. And it's a hell of a role because she's having to, is like, yeah, I'm a double agent, but not exactly. I'm the good kind,
Yeah.
I realized I was brainwashed years ago and accepted my cover, and now everyone's made me out by the other guy who's got his other agenda. Yeah. Sorry that we gave it away for those who haven't seen it, because shame on you. You should have seen it.
Especially by now.
Uh-huh. All good. So, on to The Tourist. Oh, God.
I thought this was really bad.
It was bad.
It's a remake of a French film, which is actually really sweet and fun.
I've been meaning to see it for the longest time, because, I saw that cast that was attached. I'm like, okay, Bond girl, Sophie Marceau, a bunch of these other French actors, and I'm like, I mean, it had to win awards, and it's just, I wasn't a fan. I gotta admit, I wasn't a fan of the German filmmaker, The Lives of Others, and it's like, no, just another award-winning, boring movie that is depressing that I don't like, and this was just very uninspired, and
It almost is like, dare I say it, Alexander, which is like, but I was like, what is this?
Well, it was hard to even just get a concise opinion on it, because it's just like both the user and critic scores were abysmal, and I saw them doing various interviews and posing on Time Magazine or something, and I was like, well, okay, I like Christopher McQuarrie, that's the usual suspects dude, and then again, I like these actors. Hell, it's got Bond portrayer Timothy Dalton as a bad guy, and Paul Bettany, and Stephen Burkhoff in Beverly Hills Cop. I mean, Rufus so well. I'm like, I can't give this up. And like you say, it's just like I had heard of how Depp was like going in a breakup with one of his longtime partners because they had filmed a love scene for this movie and it had gotten deleted because she was just being a pill. It was just like taking the movie too seriously, not differentiating between, you know, on screen versus off screen. And it's just like, but that was what was severely lacking. I got no charisma between these two. And it's just like, you would expect a fun kind of European kind of thriller that you would typically see in the 70s for this kind of movie. And it just like, never takes off. And that it got to where it's like, I think, what did they nominate it for? They nominated it for like best musical or comedy when it wasn't a comedy, but they were just desperate to get some kind of award.
Right.
It was like Depp kills like one guy and says like one funny line while escaping. It was like, that's not a comedy.
Yeah. It's well, we can move on.
Yeah, it's what could have been, and it's just like, yeah. Oh. And yeah.
No, there's nothing else to say about
I think Alexander's worse because that's at least 3 hours. While this had the potential to be good, and
it's pretty scenery, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just the plot, it really does undo it. And it was one of those too many cooks in the kitchen, desperate studio. Who distributed it? Was it? Oh, of course, it was Sony. So they got desperate, and it's just like it could have been a very cool around the world kind of movie. I think if they got in someone like Tony Gilroy and hell, even David Mamet, they could have made a fun kind of adventure movie. And you know, it's lacking what could have worked in some other blockbuster like Ronin or any other kind of world expediting movie. And it's like it didn't know what it wanted to be. Did it want to be like the gritty new James Bond movies? Did it want to be like some other kind of mystery movie that puzzles us all? And it's just like the plot was unfulfilling. It was already so unenjoyable that you just don't follow the plot twist because you're just so bored, and it's just like, what a waste.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Maleficent and its sequel, Mistress of Evil.
I enjoyed the first one. The sequel was kind of but
It's more of the same. I gotta say, the In Battle was kind of cool, but she didn't really get much to do in the second one.
oh. And I liked that it reunited her with Chiwetel Ejiofor from Salt and stuff, but no.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that's right. He is in that, and you got Sharlto Copley, Elle Fanning, and even Michelle Pfeiffer. So there you go. I guess I liked it just because you'd never seen it from this viewpoint, and it's definitely the better of all of these grittier live-action Disney movies. Because the rest, I mean, come on.
Either mediocre or just awful.
Yeah, I could not. I haven't seen the new Jungle Book. I refuse to.
I have.
Oh.
Um,
Not all that good.
Not really.
Because we like Jon Favreau as a filmmaker, but I'm just tired of everyone doing Disney merc jobs. They get all the acclaimed, wonderful, indie filmmakers who we all love, like Ava DuVernay, and it's like, I'm not going to see A Wrinkle in Time. And, I saw the Jungle Book, and I was just mad. And everyone's just like, it's great performances and everything. I'm like, they're just people in a voice booth, and it's recognize the voice actor. It doesn't work if you're just hearing the voice and just because they're a famous person. And this was just cool because you're at least, the other Cinderella movie was just watchable, but it wasn't inspired at all. And this was just cool to see again. Sleeping Beauty was always kind of one of the grim Disney movies I really didn't come back to all that much because it was just kind of basic. But it's like, this was how you make a way better movie in terms of just actually. Some of the CGI is dodgy in some of these, but there's some other really good effects, and it's just like I kind of just dug how they just all you have to do is just change the perspective, and that's the movie.
Yeah.
And she was what really makes the movie. With Angelina Jolie, it's Maleficent.
Yeah, very involved. She wants a movie her kids can watch, and then to be part of the Disney empire is kind of cool.
And her kids are in a cameo in it, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. He's like, okay, so then we got By the Sea, also known as movie she made with her husband.
Yes. The first time it says Angelina Jolie Pitt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is like, I don't know if she ever admitted this, but this is probably what she feels like her parents' marriage was like, I think. But yeah.
I did not know that, but that makes sense. I mean, it's a very voyeuristic kind of thriller. I thought it was watchable and way better than what most sites indicated, but it was also one of those like, I can't fully recommend it to everybody, but
You have to be in the mood for it, I think.
it's definitely an art house, tricky kind of thriller, but I'll take it way over, say, crap like Eyes Wide Shut or anything like that. It's just like, this was more of a just promiscuous kind of, it was very much like Original Sin minus a lot of the lust and all that. It was just kind of more, it's like, I think someone who I love is cheating on me.
And I think it also, right, because I don't think he gets enough credit. I think Brad Pitt is a good actor.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
We've
But
just been staying away from it because we're just talking about,
Yeah, but she allowed that to like showcase his range. You know, like how she showcases her range. This,
Mhm.
I think. But yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting kind of just like, how loyal are you to your partner kind of thing. And it's like, okay, on that level it works. But if they go into Fatal Attractionville, I'm just giving up on this movie. Thank God it didn't. So then there's, again, we've already covered all the franchises. So let's, last year in 2020, she did Come Away, which
I haven't seen it yet.
hell of a cast, but yeah, I guess it's on, was it by Disney?
I
Nope.
don't think so.
It's just a standalone fantasy movie that I hadn't heard of, but it had an international cast, and it was kind of a big deal because both she and David Oyelowo, of Selma fame, were both producers and the main stars, so that was interesting. It's
Yeah,
kind of an
I
Alice
think
in
that is
Wonderland.
too. They're like,
I think
"Here's the
so,
script.
yeah.
It comes out next week." I'm like, wait, what? But I want to see it, and I like the premise of it. Like Peter and Alice are sister and brother and stuff. But yeah, I haven't seen it.
Well, and it was just kind of interesting to just kind of see that they could actually, again, do another take on, again, the fairy tale, and as opposed to let's just do the billionth adaptation and do nothing new except,
Yeah.
budget, look, and cast. And it's like, I need more than those three factors. I need a different take on the tell. Haven't seen the Disney voiceover role, the one and only Ivan. I'm sure you can get it on their streaming platform.
Haven't seen that.
I know there's a lot of live action actors in it, so based on the story of Ivan the Gorilla.
That's why I don't want to watch it. It seems too sad.
Yeah, well, there you go. And I don't know, it's just weird how it's a true story and then they add the animal characters that are voiced by actors. So I'm like, well, so
Which one is it?
it's not a docudrama, clearly. It's a hell of a cast. I mean,
Yeah.
Bryan Cranston, Indira Varma, Raymond Rodriguez, but I'm just like, I
Yeah.
might have seen this years ago, but I'm just burned out from just talking animal movies too. I just
That's a good
why-
one. She's played a fish, a tiger. I don't know what
So there you go. Yeah,
Wow.
she plays a bush elephant.
There you go.
Okay, then.
It's a Sam Rockwell's gorilla. So there you go.
And then
I buy that, but I don't need to see it.
Yeah, me either.
Let's talk about her Smoke Jumper film by Taylor Sheridan of Sicario and Hell or High Water fame. Those Who Wish Me Dead.
yeah. Okay, I have a question. Why were they trying to kill the families? I never caught.
Okay, so
They
up
don't really
front,
explain it too much.
Okay.
essentially, Jake Weber's character explains that, again, he was friend of the friend, and they saw him at the party, and basically it was just that other shady guy who they talked to, played by Tyler Perry.
Yeah.
And it's just basically hiring those guys to do his dirty work. And I didn't feel cheated because I knew that something like that would never be unraveled for one movie, or it just would be too much and probably taxing. And I liked how it was like, okay, So she's playing a Tomb Raider kind of smoke jumper gal. I like how she's like X-Flames with one of the deputies, John Bernthal, and they're just going around for Montana, and she doesn't even need the rest of her crew. They're all very well characterized. It's like, yeah, she doesn't need them. She's during a rainstorm, so it was kind of everyone was comparing it to Cliffhanger and even freaking
Firestorm.
Well, Firestorm I understand, but like they even compared it to Backdraft, and it's like, nah.
No.
Backdraft was just a crooked firefighter causing fires, and I didn't buy in that. And this one was more just kind of like a simple plan where, you know, witness has seen too much and a bunch of thieves in the forest minus stolen treasure. I know, John, you had an issue with the assassins. I was just kind of like, well, as long as they don't ham it up or just be way over the top, I'm gonna go with it. I mean, I will admit this is like a slower episode of Yellowstone, and trust me, there are plenty of those by Taylor Sheridan. And I guess I just am okay with the slowness because I know it's going somewhere.
Yeah.
What I hate are movies where it's just like, or even other shows where it's like, great, that was 8 episodes and half of them didn't signify anything. It's just you know, wanking around and until we get to the end of the tunnel, and I'm bored already. I really don't care. I like how Nick Holt has the best death.
Who has the best death?
Nick Holt gets set on fire.
Oh yeah.
I cannot stand him as an actor, so that was icing on top.
Oh, you're like, haha.
It's like, you were a lifeless beast in X-Men. I don't care. John and I have terrible memories of seeing Mad Max Fury Road. I know everyone else loves that.
Yeah.
But sorry.
Enjoy it, but I could see it.
That's fine. I mean, yeah, it's called to know. My sister loves it, and I would have thought she hated it, so it's like, Aidan Gillian, I'm surprised how restrained he is here, because often he gives it. Right. He's at 3,000. That's how over the top he often is with most of his villain characters. He just can't escape it. He just looks like a mischief maker. Oh, I'm so glad he wasn't playing a disgusting guy like Littlefinger on Game of Thrones. He's just playing a guy with glasses.
Remember being the best part being the pregnant wife, John Bernthal's pregnant wife.
Yeah.
That was great. I'm sure Jolie might have even made a suggestion. It's like, hey, instead of just giving her a one-step character, how about you just have everyone? It reminded me definitely of Shooter. Just everybody just going around, ambushing each other in the forest, and just like, yeah, I'm having fun with this. Could it be better? Sure. Okay, so to answer your question, John, what was distracting for him was seeing the Tyler Perry cameo. He's like, why is he in this fucking movie? And anyone could have played that role. And he's like, he was a producer on it, so.
Oh, that's why.
There you go. You want to fund me? Give me something to do before you take my money.
That makes sense now.
Oh, I enjoyed the fiery deaths. The CGI didn't look bad. And trust me, I've seen my share of awful-looking fires in movies. Oh,
very true.
The Foley was really good. I guess they could have spent more on seeing the victims who she had memories of. That would have made it a little more harrowing.
Yeah. Do you think she ends up adopting the boy?
Totally.
So, yeah.
That's totally why she did this role. And I know, again, I'm biased. I like Taylor's just kind of neo-Western style.
Yeah.
But especially because this time he didn't have to rewrite it with... I know a lot of people were bashing Without Remorse because they thought it was generic. I was like, well, that's how those Tom Clancy kind of movies are. So, I mean, he did a hell of a job recharacterizing everyone. It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter if I can figure out the ending. I want to at least have fun getting there.
Exactly.
This one, she didn't really have any guys in her life. She just, again, she's kind of... Okay, so this returns her to Foxfire territory, where she's, again, kind of playing a rebel and a rescuer, like she is in real life. And so, yeah. And I wasn't annoyed by the boy. The boy was pretty good.
Yeah.
He was a big surprise.
He only talked when he had to talk. And I like how it's kind of funny. He is like, instead of just getting annoyed, he's just like, Dad, what the fuck? You know, watch your mouth.
Right.
No, what are you talking about? I have an exam. It's like, it's not, I want to play on my Game Boy. It's not, hey, I want to hang out with my stupid friends after school. I was like, no, I got an exam. I was like, that was perfect. Oh God. Maybe I should go to Montana and start a fire.
Even though it's filmed in New Mexico, and I haven't been to either states, but I feel like that I did not expect New Mexico to pass for Montana. I'm
They
curious
both
about
have
that.
mountainy areas. It definitely wouldn't have worked if they had filmed it in somewhere else, like maybe New Orleans or
Okay.
Austin. LA maybe, but I'm sure there would have been someone who'd been like, nope, nope, I can tell, nope, fuck you, nope.
Yeah.
I liked how they used flares to start it, because usually flares are just always the last ditch effort to either kill someone, the wrong way, not how you use it, or to signal someone. And it's just interesting. It's like, okay, I like how we get a sense of what she can do. I gotta admit, that was fucking cool when she just gets on the parachute. He's like, don't do it, don't do it. Oh, you're gonna do it. Because only you know how to do it. So I guess as a must-see action movie, it might not work for everyone, but I think as a psychological kind of fun cat and mouse movie adventure film, it worked for me in that standpoint.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
You just had better actors than, say, Howie Long.
True. Who looks better more in smaller roles, like in Broken Arrow? So.
Right. Who should have been an action star and yet never really happened. Oh God. Maybe they should have called Firestorm too. But this wasn't direct to video. This was theatrical, so that didn't happen. Just as a final question, I did not realize she was in so many music videos. I definitely have not seen any of those.
Me either.
Because they're either by bands I've listened but not really followed. But go ahead.
No, I remember like Meatloaf and stuff like that, seeing those, especially during the height of, Girl Interrupted and early 2000s.
We didn't talk about that. I knew I was missing something. Shit.
I was wondering that. I was looking, I'm like, no, didn't we talk about it? I think it was just when John explained when he recognized her, but I guess we didn't really talk about her Oscar-winning performance.
Totally well earned. I'll just say that.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, in many ways, you kind of wonder why the focus is on all the other characters. I'll just say that. I mean, the only other standout performance, in my opinion, for that movie has to be probably maybe Clea Duvall or Whoopi Goldberg, but definitely not. I'm going to get some heat for this. I've never really been crazy about Brittany Murphy, and I definitely don't like Jared Leto, but I didn't know he was in this. I just remember everyone talking about Winona Ryder and Murphy, and I was like, nah, Jolie's the standout, because...
Your iota is... What is it? The line? She's like... I forget it.
All I know is that she likes to lay in eggs, if you're following South Park. And shoplift. Go ahead.
Misha Collins, who's in Supernatural, was like in Girl Interrupted, and he said like I had trouble fixing my tie or something, and this actor said, "Oh, I'll help you," and it turned out to be Angelina Jolie. So he's like, so she was always really nice. That's like his story when everyone's like, "What's Angelina like?" It's like,
I love Misha. Anytime he shows up in an interview or just shows up for some kind of nerdy image, and he has stories galore to talk about. So that's a cool story for sure. I'm sure
he trended just because he was a guest at the Oscars. Did you notice? Yeah, his friend won an Oscar or was nominated for an Oscar, and he was his date. I remember I'm like, is that Castiel?
That's fucking Castiel, yeah. And
then he was trending on Twitter, and they're like, solely because he was the guest.
Well, hell, I'd give him 1 billion Oscars just from all his other recurring TV roles on ER and 24.
24, yes.
But hell, he was the best Who's Lines that anyway guessed. To where like he made them laugh. That's how awesome he is. Usually the guest laughs because they're being made fun of or anything, and he knew improv better than any of them. I'm serious. Like any skit they're in, they have trouble concentrating without laughing. So yeah, he is definitely the man. But that's so cool that that again confirms she's an awesome person. And
Oh.
dude, stop this whole she's terrible and everything. It's like, guys, just because she doesn't want your number doesn't mean she's a terrible person. You guys are just pricks. So I will say, In the Land of Blood and Honey, this got considered as underrated or really atrocious by some people. I thought it was just kind of a half and half movie. It was very well intended, and it sets her up for some better movies that she does. We're moving on to her directing segments. Did anyone else see this?
I did, and I remember it came out the same year as an Iranian film called A Separation, which is truly one of the best films ever made. And
I do remember that one, yeah.
and I think The Skin I Live In, because there was the Oscars, and those were the 3 foreign.
Oh, The Skin, yes. Now that one, that is a dynamite.
Talked about. And
that would be winner.
And so I felt like it's her first film too that she wrote and directed, and she did a ballsy move of not making it English speaking and talking about this topic and stuff like that. But yeah, if it wasn't Angelina's film, I would not have watched it. I'll admit that.
Yeah, and I mean, it basically only she could have done this. So I think had the story been a little more, it definitely had layers. It just should have been a little more organized. But yeah, I mean, this does bring up some stuff that you don't even see talked about in any of the best or worst war movies. It's just they won't even talk about Serbian, and I think they should. I mean, that and the Bosnian War is just really cinematic and should be talked about more. And no one wants to talk about this. Want to talk about the Middle East? They want to talk about South Africa or just the war here. And it's like, those are all good stories, but we've also talked about it to death. I want something else besides let's kill one of Hitler's spies. I want, brothers in arms killing each other.
And then Unbroken.
Yeah, Unbroken, I was finally able to re-see. Yeah, definitely my favorite war movie from 2014. And avoid the generics related to name only sequel. Watch this one because it's a part Olympic training movie, part, war camp, and also part boat survival,
Right.
The shark CGI is really realistic and very well done. And John, did you ever get a chance to see this?
No, I never got a chance to watch that. I've been wanting to, though.
Second best performance of John Courtney.
Really?
You cannot believe that this is the guy who's been terrible in some movies like I, Frankenstein and Terminator Genisys. And it's just like,
and Good Day Die Hard.
Yeah, there you go. And it's like, yeah, second best role to the Suicide Squad movie. Is like, yeah, this is like, maybe Spartacus for Counting TV, but it's like, yeah, really good there. Just a hell of a cast. I like how Angelina chose this actual Japanese pop star to be one of the main lieutenants who's whipping them all. Yeah, sorry, what was his name?
I'm looking. Miyagi?
He is excellent. Oh my god. Hollywood sees him up for the next blockbuster. He could totally be a perfect superhero, or again, just a dictator, or hell, you could even have him do a semi-biography of his life. That would be cool. And it's just like, he's on fire. He's definitely one of my favorite, war villains, along with Schindler's List, and
and like Jack and Donald are great, and
Jack O'Donnell is wonderful, and it's just such a shame that he's been in a few stinkers, because around the same time he was in this awful IRA movie that so many people were loving, and I saw it and I was just like, this is terrible. This is a subpar Patriot Games.
Yeah, I remember he was like growing and growing, and then he kind of died down. I'm like, what?
Yeah, he's part of ensembles, and I guess everyone wants to work with him, but no one wants, like you say, wants to use him as much as all these other British hunks and everything. It's like, no, use him. He's a good actor.
Yeah.
And much like Joel Edgerton and Guy Pearce, is like, everyone respects and knows him and wants to work with him, but they're always like the third build or the fifth build, and it's like, maybe it was that boring Jodie Foster directed George Clooney hostage thriller that did him no favors because he was really good in that. It's the hostage taker, and it's just like, if anything, see it for him. He never, much like Toni Collette, he never lets his accent slip out. He never plays the same kind of role.
Yeah. So, and it's sweet that I remember the real life Louis was Angelina's neighbor in Los Angeles.
Wow.
So she was able, and he died like right before or right after the movie came out.
But they definitely consulted with this, and I saw so many people saying, this is by the Coen brothers. I don't think it's their best movie. I'm like, well, I'm sorry. The Coen brothers have done some stinkers, and this is Angelina's movie. They're just they just did the first draft of the plot, and that's why they're credited.
It's and I think if you like war films, particularly the World War II films, this again, you're like, what can we say now? You know what I mean? And then you see this, and it gives you a different story about something that we constantly hear about. So I thought it was well done.
Absolutely, because like you say, I mean, this is a hard subject to do, and to do it well, you know, and it's also hard to make a movie that we watch and we're like, well, that was watchable, but I'm not watching that again because it was, all I remember is the depressing nature. I don't remember the themes, and it's like, I'd easily rank this up there with something very well constructed, like say maybe The Killing Fields, or you know, just one of those kinds of movies. There's plenty of World War II movies, and I mean, you can only watch Band of Brothers and Saving Private Ryan so many times. You got to watch some other ones that are very. There's plenty of good concentration camp movies, and I do feel like Jolie does a wonderful nod to say, Bridge on the River Kwai.
Yeah.
Showing, again, all kinds of British and American soldiers who have been, captured and put in the camps. And for PG-13, it really doesn't hold back. There's plenty of times where people are beating each other mercilessly, and it was very well shot by Roger Deakins, the renowned cinematographer. So there you go.
Well done.
Yes. First They Killed My Father was made for Netflix. This was the first of her directed movies that I saw, and I thought it was worth a watch. What anyone else?
I haven't seen this.
So, 7-year-old forced to be a child soldier during the Khmer Rouge era, and so I'll give it points for that. It definitely does way more than that other Beasts of No Nation from around the same time with Idris Elba. I saw that one, I was like, okay, good performance, so-so movie. This one, I actually learned way more, got an idea of what this would be like, after only slightly studying them during, what happened after the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Pol Pot and all those other guys who were just putting anyone who they felt deceived them, and prisoners of the Cambodian Civil War that just Vietnam never even remotely addressed.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally recommend. Maybe not a must-see, but I mean, I think most people will definitely like Unbroken, and some people are starting to watch By the Sea because it's being played on the movie channels.
Yeah.
She's produced a bunch of other movies, and including one and only Ivan, but I'd be curious to see what she takes on next. I really would, besides...
And then Marvel coming up with the Eternals.
True, Eternals.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know everyone's making a scene about how both she and co-star Ethan Hawke are now doing superhero movies after previously saying, oh, the movies I've seen, I don't want to be a part of. I think those are boring. It's like, well, you have to remember, when those started out, they weren't very good movies. And now they are good movies. But there's plenty of them who John and I will gladly say, overrated and everything. But it's like, there's plenty of them that do hit the mark and do pay off. And I think I just remember just seeing the cast, Kumail Nanjiani, who again, I'm familiar with his TV work more than his movies, and everyone's been saying his movies been like, oh, he's annoying. It's like, yeah, he was pretty annoying because those were pretty bad movies and he didn't have anything to do. But
look like one movie.
Yeah. And this one also has Salma Hayek, so that'd be interesting. I think it's going to be a hell of a cast, and I remember again, sorry guys, the movie hasn't come out yet, so we can't speak about it. But I will just say it was so funny how I think it was 2019. She just came out and is like everyone just cheers. She got like the biggest applause because it's like whoa, nice.
Wow.
I don't know if it was a surprise or if it was just one of those just most looking anticipated, because when was the last time she was at a Comic-Con type thing?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That kind of person, and it's like it just was cool to see that and just her enthusiasm. So I think that alone sells the movie. Is like she has faith in it, so clearly it's more than just a bigger house. And it's like I think someone is carefully, much like Brad Pitt, she's very picky about what kind of plot she does. Is like, okay, that was then, this is now I need the best of the best script writers, and I need a studio that takes this movie seriously.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you, Pascal, but her career is actually going somewhere.
That's very true.
Sorry, I'm just still sore about that. Don't call someone terrible names in an email. It's just very petty. Oh, so Tara, you want to promote your podcast? Your two of them.
Well, discussing divas was a fun little thing that I started several years ago because I wanted to talk about stuff, and I always encourage people to just do it if you want to have fun. I've been neglecting it lately, but we're hoping to do it again. And it's just TV shows that we really love, and we dissect our experience and stuff with it. But the one that I'm really I went full force on is Who Was She podcast, which is a biographical podcast on women throughout history. And so far I'm concentrating on women throughout history of the Baha'i faith.
I did hear 2 episodes of that, and that was good because, I mean, much like the true crime stuff, you are doing a good job of creating a narrative and having your facts straight.
Yeah, so the first season is on Lydia Zemenoff, who traveled the world to teach the language of Esperanto, a language her father invented, and towards the end of her life, you've got travel, you've got spies, it's World War II. She did die in a concentration camp, and
they should totally do a movie on her life.
That's what I always wanted to happen, but it's really expensive. So I did a podcast on it, and we'll see what happens with that. But next seasons are going to be on people like Hazel Scott, who is a jazz and classical pianist, and was the first Black American to have her own television show in the 1950s. And I'm really excited. I'm reading her biography now, and yeah, I'm excited.
Perfect. Okay.
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try
They must be destroyed on sight.
the new Podcast Cure-All? Sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of
They must be destroyed on sight.
as needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Hey, I heard you like movies.
I heard you like to hustle.
I heard you like podcasts.
Well, guess what?
There's a podcast for you out there called The Home Video Hustle.
Damn right.
Every Friday, we talk about whatever movie PJ picks out the bag. What does that mean? Every Wednesday on our YouTube page, I put a bunch of movies in a bag, and PJ picks one out at random. And then we just watch it. We talk about it for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever we feel like doing, wherever the conversation leads us.
But do we actually talk about the movie?
Most of the time. Tangents galore.
Yes.
So believe me, we may be a movie podcast, but it's not always about movies. We might talk about video games,
Music.
Yeah, that's the big one, music. Sometimes we might get a little bit of politicalness in there.
Yes.
Sometimes we may just, we know what we like to do. We like to tell stories, PJ.
Yeah, yes.
I am the master storyteller of the podcast realm. Undefeated. So if you like to hear about movies, video games, whatever foolishness comes to our mind, the most random stuff you could think of, check out the Home Video Hustle. You can find us on the Stitchers, the Google Play, Apple Podcasts,
What else?
Podbean,
What else?
Podcast Addict,
Goddamn.
all that. Ain't no reason you can't get your hustle on. We everywhere, worldwide, baby.
Hustle, motherfucking hustle.
Hey, we can't cuss in the promo, PJ.
We
gotta be family friendly. There may be podcasts out there that don't want his hair to say all that good fun stuff.
Well, you.
Don't run the listeners away, PJ.
I'm sorry.
But this is going kind of long.
Yes.
So we'll end this and say, hey, check out the Home Video Hustle every Friday on all the various podcast outlets. Peace.
Peace.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And while Witch didn't make it to the top of the world, he did make the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. So join the gang and enjoy a movie review podcast about movie gangs, gangsters, mobsters, and the mayhem they cause. You can find GOH Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at GOH Pod at www.gohpod.com, as well as your favorite podcast listening app. And remember, say hello to your little friend for me.
If you take two old punk rockers who are past their prime, put them in front of a movie screen and give them a podcast, what do you get? Cinema Punks. Cinepunks. It's the mixtape of movies.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of her.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this movie.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history all popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was going to be a rough
How could you watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
It's time, let's check our queue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah.
Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. With a one-liner plot holes and gratuitous movies. It's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy.
At eilfm.podbean.com.
Hi, everybody. It's Mac Jackson. I wanted to invite you to a new site called the Forever Adventure Network. This website has everything: pictures, videos, blogs. There's original music by Harmony Constant, 2 podcasts. One is the MacGyver podcast, where we celebrate Richard Dean Anderson, his iconic roles, and how it's influenced our lives. There's episode discussions, interviews, and life conversations. The second podcast is the Never Gets Old podcast, where we celebrate all the best things that we love in life, from TV, movies, music, and comics. The site is also the home for the MacGyver SG-1 audio series, an ongoing adventure series that continues the adventures of MacGyver and SG-1. There are also multiple stores to choose from for all of your pop culture and adventure needs. Come on by and check us out today. And thanks for joining the adventure.
We now continue with our program.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up